Good morning, dear sisters and brothers in Christ. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this plenary and greet you warmly on behalf of the churches and ecumenical movement in Asia. Before we proceed, may I invite the General Secretary to make announcements.
Your Eminences and Excellencies, dear sisters and brothers in Christ, thank you very much, Dr. Nababan, for giving me the floor. And let me take this opportunity to also thank you for the leadership you and the 7 presidents have been offering to the World Council of Churches in this period, and also the many ways you have been serving our movement, as you also today lead our Assembly's plenary. I would also like to take this moment to acknowledge the presence of my 2 predecessors, the former WCC General Secretaries Konrad Reiser and Sam Kobia. Philip Potter cannot be with us physically due to his high age, and this is the first assembly in his life he is not attending physically. But we give him our greetings and our prayers. Our brother Emilio Castro passed away at the beginning of this year, as most of you know, and we had a memorial service for him in the Ecumenical Chapel in Geneva, where we said thanks to God for his life and ministry among us. And now, I would like to give you some practical announcements, which are indeed important. As you know, from many announcements, there is a weekend pilgrimage for peace to Seoul and Busan and other cities, and you have signed up for it, and some of you, many of you now, have confirmed. This is to share Korean culture, Korean church life, and Korean hopes for justice, peace, and reconciliation. And in today's edition of the Madang Daily Paper, you will find detailed information for every departure. So please check the Madang Daily Paper of today to be sure that you know when your departure is. And please be ready on time. You will never forget what will happen this weekend. And if you still have not confirmed your participation for the Seoul trip or for the Sunday worship in Busan, I ask you to go to the Madang Hall immediately after this plenary to see the host committee information desk. And there you would actually see that those of you who have not confirmed yet, you now have to compete with anybody else who want to have these tickets and these unique opportunities to go to Seoul this weekend. So now it is first come first. If you come to the Madang after this plenary, you will get your ticket, whether you have been registered already or not. First come first. There are 200 tickets left. And we expect that they will be gone immediately after this plenary. I also remind you that in this building, at the ground floor, there is a pastoral care team and a medical care team at the ground floor in this auditorium building. So, again, let us do our duty and honor our hosts by using what they offer to us this weekend. But now, let me come to my privileged honor to invite the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Justin Welby, to present his greetings to the Assembly. We are so grateful that you are participating with us in this assembly, Archbishop.
Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, on behalf of the Anglican Communion, I greet you in the name of our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ and bring you our very best wishes for this assembly in Busan. It is a great privilege, more than I can express in words, for me to be here at the beginning of the 10th assembly. Ever since the first assembly at Amsterdam in 1948, Archbishops of Canterbury have had this privilege of being invited to be with you, a personal sign of how important the fellowship of churches has been and still is for Anglicans. As a result of being here, we have sometimes been uncomfortably challenged and even moved to reform ourselves. We have learned so much from our participation in the life of the fellowship. We have made so many friends. Friendship is the seedbed in which progress towards unity, the visible unity of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, grows and flourishes. This is my first assembly, and I am enjoying a sense of wonder at my tiny place among God's great church, which draws together women and men, young and not so young, lay and ordained, from different continents and cultures and different church traditions. Being here together provides a fresh vision for me of that to which we are called. Together we renew our commitment to the ecumenical journey and to the ecumenical task. It is a task, I am reminded, that requires a stern renewal of determination if we are going to make progress. We cannot be satisfied while there is a lack of visible unity. If we are satisfied, we defy the great high priestly prayer of Christ himself. We have traveled to this place praying, God of life, lead us to justice and peace. Peace and justice begin with us and God. When we are not at peace with God through Jesus Christ, we cannot be peacemakers or bringers of justice in the world. God calls us to be reconciled reconcilers, reconciled ourselves to God and to each other. Peace and justice become in us a cause for which any sacrifice is worthwhile when they are given birth in each of us and in the church by the Holy Spirit. For that reason, we need to be seen again to be a people of prayer. Faced with the God of peace and justice, our hunger for unity grows. We are able to forgive and love one another with the love that God puts into our lives. It is God who is the perfection of unity. In God is the one Father, the one Lord, the one Spirit, who in Christ draws us into unity with God and with one another. And that is using the words of the Lambeth Conference of Anglican Bishops in 1920. We are to be one, visibly one, so that the world may believe. We are to be one so that the gospel we preach is not denied by the way we live in separation. We are to be one because we are more effective together than apart. We are to be one people, worshipping one God, eating and drinking round the one table of the Lord. For that is Jesus' prayer for his disciples, then and for us now. The Fellowship of Churches in the World Council of Churches has helped us Anglicans to understand something of the unity that is God's gift and our calling. But so often we have made God's amazing and precious gift sound like an impoverished unity, the life of an inward-looking, self-absorbed community, only intent on self-preservation. Only institutions that are willing to lose their lives for the sake of the good news, the gospel, and for Christ, will find the life God offers. As Anglicans, as the World Council of Churches, we must die to live. When we look to God, our eyes are turned outwards to his world, and we hear again the command, as Pope Francis said, to be a poor church for the poor. The true children of Christ act instinctively to love those who suffer as he loves us. If justice fades, hope faints. But when justice is loved and lived, the poor have hope, and the whole world begins to sing. Our vision has to be of God and God's world, and the church made sense of in that perspective. The unity statement before this assembly tries to capture the vision. To fulfill that vision, we need a fresh confidence in the good news as the best way for every human being on the planet, a fresh spirit of grace to one another, and a fresh commitment to sacrifice all in the name of Christ for unity that reveals him. God of life, lead us together in unity to justice and to peace. Amen.
Thank you so much, Your Grace, for your inspiring and encouraging words to us. This is definitely a solid foundation for our work today and the days to come. And I now have the honor and the privilege to call on the chairperson of the Pentecostal World Fellowship, Dr. Prince Gunaratnam. Welcome.
Instead of saying good morning to you, I will say, praise the Lord. And will you respond by saying, praise the Lord? Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Wonderful. My appreciation to the General Secretary, Dr. Olive Tivitt, and the WCC Council for their kind invitation and the privilege to greet the Assembly as the chairman of the Pentecostal World Fellowship. It is an honor to be here and to greet you. I would also like to add that my appreciation to the Global Christian Fellowship, or the Global Christian Forum, it is my association with them that has helped me to, or at least understand the reason why I'm here this morning. I also appreciate the time I had to attend the 2012 WCC Central Committee meeting in Creek, where I learned more about the WCC. I was much encouraged by the unity of faith and the purpose shown by the leadership drawn from the rich diversity of the various Christian confessions and traditions. Appreciate the General Secretary's report at the Congress in Busan and the challenges we face to bring the gospel that offers hope to the helpless, to the lost, to the suffering, and to the needy. I greet you all on behalf of the Pentecostal World Fellowship, a cooperative body of Pentecostals and charismatic churches that encompass more than 600 million Pentecostal charismatics in the world who are committed to fulfill the Great Commission to the empowering of the Holy Spirit. The objectives of the Pentecostal World Fellowship are embodied in our mission statement, and it reads, promoting and encouraging alliances among spirit-filled leaders and networks, coordinating worldwide prayer amongst Pentecostal believers, fostering world missions and support and humanitarian efforts, providing relief aid when and where possible, speaking to governments and nations in defense of the faith, social justice, and the persecuted believers, serving as a cooperative body or fellowship for the Pentecostal theological institutions. Today we live in a world wrecked by poverty, corruption, religious extremism. To address these challenges, we must go beyond national tragedies to bring about economic transformation, social equity, religious freedom, educational reforms, theological advances, technological advances, and so on. And I believe the Church of Jesus Christ has the answer and needs to demonstrate the love and the power of God through the power of the Holy Spirit. To impact this world, we as the church must be united while recognizing and celebrating the diversities in the expression of our faith and mission. I believe that this is the time for our organizations such as the WCC, the PWF, and other Christian agencies to be open and willing to accept each other to further the kingdom of God, and this will certainly hasten the soon return of Jesus Christ. Let us note from what John had to say to Jesus in Mark chapter 9 and verse 38. John said, "Teacher, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us." And Jesus responded to John and said, "Do not stop him, for no one who does miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against me is for us." May we seriously take this admonishment to heart. I'm sure that this Congress, already we see signs of success, and I believe it will be successful and will accomplish that which you have set out to do. And may God's grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit lead and guide the WCC in all your deliberations and decisions. And may our constant and united prayer be, as the theme of this conference so aptly directs us, God of life, lead us in justice and in peace. And the Lord bless you all.
Dr. Gunnar Atman, this has been a very significant moment in the history of the relationships between you and the World Council of Churches. As we receive your greetings as chairperson of this Pentecostal World Fellowship you represent, I had the privilege to speak to your assembly 3 years ago, and these moments are signs of growing trust and relationships between us. And we give God thanks for what they are for us. Now I have the honor and privilege this morning to present to you a third representative from a partner among us, an interreligious relationship we have, Reverend Watanabe, who is chair of Risshoku Seikai's Board of Trustees in Japan, an important international Buddhist organization, well known for its work in interreligious cooperation. Please.
皆様、おはようございます。本日、この WCC 第14回において、皆様にご挨拶をする機会をいただきましたことは、私と立正厚生会にとりまして、大きな喜びであり、名誉であります。心より感謝申し上げます。私ども立正厚生会は、家庭、職場、地域社会において、伝統的な釈尊の教えを生かし、平和な世界を築いていこうとしている日本の在家仏教教団でございます。1938年に創立され、現在約129万世帯の会員を擁し、日本国内では238教会、海外では21カ国に68の拠点がございます。仏教徒として布教伝道に励みながら、宗教界をはじめ各界の人々と手を携え、国内外でさまざまな平和活動に取り組んでおります。振り返りますれば、閉会の開祖、庭の日教が世界宗教者平和会議への協力を要請するため、スイス・ジュネーブの WCC 本部に友人カーソン・ブレイク総幹事を訪ねたのは1969年のことでした。以来、閉会は WCC との友好に努めてまいりました。1983年のカナダ・バンクーバー以降、毎回の総会にご招待いただく一方、WCC の中東やアジアでのプログラムなどにもご協力申し上げてまいりました。1986年に閉会の関連団体である庭の平和財団が諸宗教間の相互理解と対話に一貫して取り組まれたフリップ・ポッター元総幹事に第4回庭の平和賞を贈りましたことも忘れられない歴史の1ページであります。1999年には当時のコンラッド・ライザー総幹事に閉会をご訪問いただき、式典にてご講演を頂戴しております。さて、WCC はその使命、歴史、規模において世界でも他に類を見ない唯一の連合体であります。源を同じくするキリスト教諸教会の連帯は、多くのキリスト者にとって長年の願いであり、この大きな目標に向け、抽象的な議論にとどまらず、現実の諸課題を念頭に置いた、一人一人の人を大切にするさまざまな具体的取り組みを WCC が継続してこられたことは、現代史において特筆されるべき偉業であり、心より敬意を表するものであります。現在においては、主要なキリスト教諸教会が参加し、またカトリックとも強い関係を保ち、まさに世界を網羅する連合体であり、その功績は国際的にも 確かな評価を得ております。また、キリスト教内の一致のみならず、キリスト者がいかに他の宗教を持つ人々と共に生きていくことができるか、そのような視点から WCC はいわゆる諸宗教対話、協力にも力を傾注されてきました。その果実の一つが2011年に WCC バチカン諸宗教対話評議会世界福音同盟が共同で発表しました多宗教世界におけるキリストの証、信仰の実践のための提言でありましょう。多宗教の人々に対するキリスト者としてのふさわしい行動について述べた同提言書から私ども仏教とも多くの学びをいただきました。今朝のこの全体会議はアジア地域に焦点を当てています。アジアこそはこれまで申し上げてきたような WCC のポテンシャルが遺憾なく発揮されうる地域の一つでしょう。アジアは豊かな多様性に彩られた地域であります。民族、文化、そして宗教、実にさまざまな色が織りなされ、さながら極彩色の巨大なタペストリーのようであります。このような状況下においてこそ、先ほどの提言のような英知が生かされることでしょう。また WCC は具体的な活動として2010年と本年、タイにおいて諸宗教者を招いた対話プログラムを開催し、閉会もそれらへの参加を通じて大いに学び、今後のさらなる協力を期待しておりますところであります。平和な世界は一朝一夕に実現するものではありません。しかしながら、常に理想を胸に、地道に対話を続け、協力の道を模索することで、一歩ずつでも近づき、必ず到達できるものであることを私は信じております。今日ここにお集まりの皆さんとこの思いを分かち合い、共に生きるために微力ながらも最善を尽くしてまいりたいと念願しております。10月30日の開式以来、すでに多くの会合、プログラムが実施され、今後もさまざまな行事が用意されております。韓国の皆様の素晴らしいホスピタリティのもと、それらを通じて真剣かつ心のこもった交流がなされ、今総会が多くの果実を生み出すことを記念し、私の挨拶とさせていただきます。ご清聴誠にありがとうございました。
Reverend Watanabe, thank you so much for your words of recognition and of wisdom. In today's world, we really need to build strong and reliable interreligious relations for our common pilgrimage for justice and for peace. And this, moderator, was my announcement.
Thank you. The purpose of this plenary is to deepen reflections on the theme God of life lead us to justice and peace from varied Asian perspectives, and to inspire this assembly to enhance the spirit of solidarity and cooperation with Asian struggles through creative prayers and actions. Asia has been a cradle of world religions. Asia is diverse. Almost half of the world population lives in Asia. Yet, during the past 2 centuries, Asia has been conquered and dominated by powers of colonial domination, of a global market regime of unlimited greed. This reality is manifest in structures of injustice, ceaseless wars, and the willful destruction of life. The churches in Asia are facing these challenges. In the past, as parts of their nations, the churches had a history of responding to national struggles of political independence and participation in nation building. Nowadays, together with all other religions, they are facing the challenges of life which are based on justice and peace. The religions of Asia provide the moral fiber of communities and a strong spiritual foundation for life so that life can blossom in all its fullness. The churches are called to serve for the creative purpose of multi-religious convergence for peace, justice, and life, so that the 21st century may be called again a nation century in which a birth of new civilization for life may take place. Guided by the text we studied this morning, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like everlasting stream, this plenary will share both the struggles and joy of Asia and its peoples.
We have come on a journey from all over Asia in search for home, seeking to be whole. Amid shattered lives, broken dreams, in our land we seek a balm to heal. Lord, we pray as one here in Asia. Make us one. Use us to be your arm for justice to stay. Peace to prevail, Lord Jesus. This is our prayer. For behold, here in Asia, your kingdom is dawning. The youth with faith are awakening. The elderly with hope are smiling. With the children with freedom are dancing. Lord, we pray as one here in Asia. Make us one. Use us to be your arm for justice to stay. Peace to prevail, Lord Jesus. This is our prayer. Now we sing.
My name is Ya Qi. I'm from the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan. My great-grandparents and the two families became Christians when they encountered foreign missionaries on the street. I was raised by Japanese-speaking grandparents who inherited Japanese lifestyle and value during colonization. I speak Mandarin and Taiwanese. I'm a goddaughter of an indigenous tribe from southern Taiwan. The outfit that I'm wearing today and the necklace are from them. But you can see that I'm wearing that in a fashionable way. This is me, and this is Asia. Like most of the Asians, we enjoyed different traditions at the same time. I love Asia for its vibrant and colorful features. Its uniqueness comes from the encounter of various heritages and the reinterpretation and transformation of these traditions. The multicultural Asia is the testimony of God's creation. By recognizing the differences and the multiple identities within ourselves and our societies, we recognize the abundant and vivid creation that God had granted to Asia. Starting from a consensus of a diverse Asia, we have always understood that our neighbors may enjoy a very different tradition or lifestyle from us. One very distinct difference that exists in Asia is religions. In most of the Asian countries, Christians are the minorities. But we also have many other minorities, such as other religious minorities, sexual minorities, and indigenous people. Some of these people suffer from discrimination and oppression because they have chosen to embrace and preserve their own identities. In some cases, internal conflicts or military confrontation is severe across ethnic or communal lines as well as within single communities. Social exclusion forces many minority groups into enforced silence, coercive subjection, and continued marginalization. In such situations, the churches in Asia must stand with people who are voiceless. This is not an option or a choice. It is a must. They are our neighbors that God loves, and in most of the cases, we are part of them, and they are also part of us. As a young person in Asia, I also see many people from our continent move across boundaries. Sometimes they move from rural areas to urban cities, and sometimes they cross border to another country. These people are known as married migrants, migrant workers, internally displaced people, stateless people, and refugees. They leave their hometown for different reasons, but with a common wish, in pursuit of a secure and better future. However, crossing border can be risky. It strips them of any remaining layers of protection that might have been available in their own country and community. Churches usually serve as a transnational shelter for these who are away from home. When the borders dividing us become more acute, the church must step forward to bridge the gap and to break down barriers like Jesus Christ. Church unity must go beyond ethnic, cultural, linguistic, and political obstacles. Churches should open their doors and make themselves as welcoming communities to practice the gift of hospitality. Standing firm in the belief that we are one in God's kingdom, churches in Asia must learn to live, work, witness, and serve the world in solidarity. For many of us in Asia, the experience of colonization has not ended. The empire did not simply dissolve due to political transition and democratization. Wearing multiple and changing masks, the new empire rises and sustains itself in the context of globalization and neoliberalism. In a consumer society, the challenges we face as churches today is even more severe. We have plenty of options. Each of the options seem to be glittering and glamorous in both developed and developing countries. We are unconsciously being driven by quantitative rules of growth and development. On the contrary, the pursuing of profits results in both ecological disasters and economic crises. On one hand, among those natural disasters, Fukushima nuclear disaster is a brutal warning to human beings that the consequences of nuclear disaster are beyond states, generations, and our human wisdom. On the other hand, Asia serves as one of the biggest factories in the world. In front of the production lines, people work overtime in sweat factories under poor conditions in exchange of minimum wages. Some of them suffer from psychological diseases, and many are children under 18. These are the people who produce our smartphones and daily supplies. Young people are facing high unemployment rate, even though some of them are university graduates. Some are fortunate enough to obtain a job, but the salary cannot sustain them with a promising future. Neoliberal capitalism is eroding all aspects of our values and Christian belief. However, some churches even support and integrate the idea under the concept of prosperity theology, which highlights the success in secular life rather than reconsidering the oppression brought by neoliberal capitalism. Sometimes economic progress and growth is used to mask the violation of fundamental human rights by both the states and the large enterprises, including freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right to housing, and right to life. We are living in a world when more and more people have access to various tools to express and broadcast themselves. It looks like we are living in a closer relationship with our neighbors than ever before. However, we have to be aware that there are still many people who are denied full access to internet, being put into jail simply because they post their opinions online, being forcibly evicted from their lands, being executed under unfair trials, and facing enforced disappearance under the name of unity and peace. Jesus never looks down on human suffering. We, as followers of Jesus, must stand together with these people to fight for dignity. As I look at the rainbow-like diversity in Asia, it always reminds me of the indigenous legend from one of the Taiwanese indigenous tribes. In their tradition, rainbow is a bridge towards the land of ancestors in afterlife. Our ancestors built churches on different identities and traditions through God's love. Churches of Asia in the multicultural context communicate with people in different beliefs and ideologies every single day. We are bridges among nations, religions, ethnic groups, castes, and political parties as peacemakers. I want to share a quote with you from the Confession of Faith of the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan. We believe that the church is the fellowship of God's people, called to proclaim the salvation of Jesus Christ and to be the ambassador of reconciliation. It is both universal and rooted in this land, identifying with all its inhabitants, and through love and suffering, becoming the sign of hope. And I believe that this is the mission that the Church of Asia has been carrying, and we as young people will continue carry in the future.
Wow, a beautiful necklace Yachip got from her grandparents. This is really Asian tradition. I also have one I got from my grandmother. So this is from generation to generation. What are the challenges to justice and peace in Asia? I will continue on this line. The 21st century is widely considered to be the Asian century. The growing impact of globalization and the rapid economic growth are forcing several Asian countries to reposition and redefine their roles both at the regional and global levels. The pivot of international politics is shifting towards the Asia region. At the same time, the new century also poses several problems related to justice, peace, and dignity of the people of Asia. Asia is a vast region with diverse cultures, as you have seen, and a long history of civilization. For many centuries, Asian people have lived in the context of ethnic and religious plurality, with the attitudes respecting the differences and promoting the spirit of harmony are central to the life of the people. One of the unique characteristics that can be seen in the life of the Asian people is their willingness to share whatever resources they have with others, with guests, and even with strangers. However, we notice with great concern a continuous erosion of such community-centered life. There is a growing social disintegration characterized by conflicts, especially along ethnic and religious lines. It is ironic that more and more Asian people are being torn away from the spirit of plurality, which is the very essence of Asian culture. There are many factors and key stakeholders from within the region as well as from outside that contribute to the denial of justice and peace to millions of Asians. The churches and the ecumenical movement in Asia face all these challenges in their day-to-day lives while they witness and proclaim the truth of the gospel. Asia is experiencing economic growth. But ironically, at the same time, Asians are experiencing situation of poverty, inadequate healthcare, economic exploitation, depletion of natural resources and environmental degradation, natural disasters, armed conflict and violence, militarizations, arms build-up, nuclearization, spread of small arms and light weapons, domination and intervention of major powers from outside Asia, communal violence and political unrest, violation of human rights in various forms, torture, custodial death, human trafficking, violation of rights of women, children, and the migrant workers, unemployment, lack of rule of law and democratic governance, and the list continues. These are the backdrop. This is against which Asian churches are reflecting on the real meaning of the prayer. God of life, lead us to justice and peace. What is the relevance of this prayer? And our theological response to situations in many parts of Asia that are witnessing armed conflicts and violence. Armed insurgency is widespread. The nature of armed conflicts in certain contexts are concerning the power-sharing incompatibility over territory and governance, as well as exploitation of natural resources by private, state-sponsored, or multinational companies. When control of natural resources by local and multinational companies force local communities to leave the original owners of the land are driven out from their ancestral land, especially the indigenous communities in several countries of Asia. Recently, about 500 women, one from every village in Dinkia, in the eastern state of Odisha in India, participated in a sit-in under the heat to strongly express their concern related to a project promoted by POSCO, a South Korean firm, to produce 12 million tons of steel a year for export. They protested on the impact of this project on their land and livelihood. The building of the Sayaburi Dam in the banks of the Mekong in Laos, which is recently in full swing, has stripped the forest and mountains, and thousands of people are displaced. All this creates fears among the people, especially as the resistance have caused forms of enforcement and violent actions. Military spending in Asia, for the first time in modern society, overtook the European members of NATO last year. Despite the negative impact of the global financial crisis, almost every country in Southeast Asia is now involved in arms buildup, mainly important from Western arms manufacturers, which makes Asia one of the fastest growing regions for defense spending in the world. With the new strategic initiative, widely known as the Pivot to Asia, the United States is increasingly viewing the strategic importance of the Asia-Pacific region. This is considered a shift of U.S. global strategic posture from Afghanistan and Iraq towards Asia-Pacific. This has already raised eyebrows and anxiety in Asia, as it might affect peace and security of the people, and it will deny justice to millions. Asia-Pacific regions hold 7 of the world's 10 largest armed forces, and 5 of the 7 are involved in U.S. mutual defense treaties, namely Japan, South Korea, Thailand, the Philippines, and Australia. Growing trends of religious intolerance and religious conflicts are other reasons that hinder peace with justice in Asia. The politicization of religion and the challenge to religious freedom are increasing. The blasphemy law in the places such as Pakistan continue to be an ecumenical concern. Discrimination of people on the basis of caste, religion, and denial of their human dignity continue to cause social deprivation and marginalization. Asia has been witnessing a massive movement of migrant workers from the economically weak communities to the emerging new economic zones, either within one country or beyond borders. Even though these migrant workers contribute to the economic growth of the country in which they work, they continue to suffer from the abusive and discriminative attitudes from various corners. In recent years, the flow of migrants and asylum seekers from the Asia continent to Australia and New Zealand also increased. Violence against women and children is escalating. Rape normally reflects the imbalances of power in society. These inhuman incidents result in women suffering both physical and mental trauma due to their biological vulnerability and their fear of being stigmatized for life, while the men go scot-free. In our Asian context, we realize that gender justice cannot be fully achieved by empowering women only. Churches in Asia and the Asia Ecumenical Movement have been trying to respond to these issues in various ways. They continue to advocate for the emerging peace concerns in Asia, including in the Korean Peninsula, and express their prophetic witness in the time when peace and security of the people are threatened. Upholding the dignity of children, building the culture of peace, especially among the young people, and the partnership of men and women are some of our ecumenical priorities. encouraging and accompanying the churches to respond to the emerging issues, such as migrant workers, asylum seekers, HIV, and AIDS are very much emphasized. Increasingly, local churches have integrated the issue of ecological justice in their ministries. From time to time, the churches express their solidarity in prayers, pastoral visits, and concrete actions to the churches affected by natural disasters and communal conflicts. The efforts for contextual theologizing continue to shape the life and ministry of the churches, especially in the context of Asian plurality. We believe that many of the pressing issues in Asia today and present tensions among the different religious groups can only be solved by improving the relationship and cooperation among people of different faiths. The role of Asian churches to respond to these challenges is increasing day by day. Early this year, the Christian Conference of Asia and the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences have been instrumental in facilitating a conference of Muslim Christian religious leaders in Asia, which became a joint initiative of religious communities to bring the common word to common action for peace and justice in Asia. The joint program of Christian Conference of Asia and Federation of Asian Bishop Conference also continue on Asian movement for Christian unity, which provide a platform for ecumenical conversation among various Christian families, especially in witnessing Christ together in Asian pluralistic context. Asian realities are not disconnected from the rest of the world. The changing situation in the world affects Asia tremendously, and vice versa. Together with any people in the community, the churches in different parts of the world need to work in partnership to heal the wounds and promote reconciliation, peace, and justice for all, thus restoring the life in the household of God in the midst of the brokenness of our world today. In the midst of these negative forces that deny justice and peace, we need to find hope in the midst of despair. We, the Asian Christian, believe that God of life, God of light, will show us the path and lead us all to peace with justice. And here is the symbol of light from Asia to all the world. Thank you.
Who will kailan pa? Kung hindi ngayon, kailan pa? Who will speak for the martyrs? Who will speak for the missing? Who will speak so the killings must end? Oh, who will speak if you don't? Oh, who will speak if you don't? Who will speak if you don't? Who will speak if you don't? Who will speak so their voices will be heard? Who will speak?
Millions of voices are struggling to speak up as millions of people lost their voices in many other forms. Last night, I almost lost my physical voice, but I refuse to be silent. I want to speak up. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Peace, peace. Where is peace? Peace is elusive and only a dream to many, especially in this era of empire. Many define peace, but none adequately speak for the complexities of Asia in the 21st century. Asia is the largest of the Earth's 7 continents. It is also the most populous continent, being the home to 58% of the world's population. It is the birthplace of some of the oldest civilizations, traditions, languages, spiritualities, rituals and traditions, and even ideological and political agenda. It is also the birthplace of some of the world's major religions, the land of the spirits, gods, and goddesses. But it is also the land of tears. It is the home for millions of hungry people, a battleground for world's power, an altar on which many have been sacrificed in order to feed the greed, the fantasies, and the fears of the powerful. As such, vulnerability characterizes the life of many in Asia. The false promises of peace in the name of economic globalization, dehumanizing capitalism, and increasing militarization continue to engulf the world, adversely affecting the lives of many. When a Dalit woman's sexuality is constantly being violated, how does she define peace? When a street child goes hungry in an affluent society, how does this child define peace? When indigenous people are being uprooted from their ancestral land, how do they define peace? When workers could not receive their just wages and benefits, what does peace mean to them? When students could not continue their studies because of lack of resources, how do they understand peace? Peace is more than a cessation of war or an absence of strife. Peace is the active presence of justice. Peace that could not ensure justice is not authentic peace. Justice is beyond jurisprudence. It is about life-affirming and life-sustaining relationships at all levels. In many parts of Asia, injustice takes place in all forms. Making peace is to advocate for justice for peoples, community, and the nations. To do justice is to ensure that people live with dignity and wholeness. Dignity and wholeness, however, are not possible when millions of people live in abject poverty. For them, life is a burden to carry. There is one thing that I would like to lift up for our reflection today, and that is the collective sense of human indifference and insensibilities. One reason why we have so much poverty is not because we lack food and resources, but it is because of an equal distribution of wealth caused by greed and indifference. While millions of tons of fruits and vegetables are being demolished in the first world market just to keep the prices high, thousands of children in Asia and Africa are dying every day because of hunger. It is said that the USA has the resources to feed 40 billion people. That figure is 6 times the current population of the world. Yet, 30,000 people, especially children, starve to death every day. The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, or the UNICEF, estimates that it will only take $7 billion a year to ensure that every child on earth gets vaccinated. Yet, the world apparently does not have resources for food, education, and basic health care. The USA spends $7 billion a year on ice cream, $7 billion a year on makeup, $7 billion a year on dog food, $14 billion a year on chocolate, and $800 billion a year for weapons of mass destruction. Decades ago, Mahatma Gandhi also said, "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed." But we refuse to listen. Therefore, reimagining justice is to recognize the sacredness of every life as a gift of God. This involves speaking the truth, even at the expense of shattering the pretentious facade of peace in order to give and to craft true peace. God's justice is based on the interdependence of life, a spirit of mutual accountability and responsibility. Peace is an inevitable component of life. True peace is living life to the fullness. Living life to the fullness is not a monopoly of the few, but a promise to all, including our children and our children's children and the rest of the created order. To pray to a God of peace to lead us to justice and peace is to affirm Sangsaeng, an ancient Korean concept of sharing economy and community that allows all to flourish together. It is also to affirm Ubuntu, I am because you are, a concept that captures African anthropology and the cosmic vision of life in community. Indeed, when Sansaeng and Ubuntu meet together in a perichoretic dance of life, justice and peace kiss each other, and the biblical vision of shalom shines. The World Council of Churches theme, God of Life, lead us to justice and peace, is both an affirmation of the divine character, as well as an affirmation and an articulation of the human desire to participate in it. The prayer as a petition recognizes that God is the originator of life, justice, and peace. At the same time, the prayer is a confession of one's commitment to be led by a God of life into God's justice and peace.
안녕하십니까. Morning.
Good morning.
Your eminences, your graces, dear brothers and sisters in Christ. The theme of the World Council of Churches, 10th General Assembly, God of Life, lead us to justice and peace, touches the hearts of Christians all over the world, especially the hearts of Orthodox Christians, because the Orthodox Church is being persecuted in various countries in Eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. I will mention 4 examples. Let us first look at the case of Syria, a country whose Christian roots goes back to the early church, as it is mentioned in the book of Acts. It was at Antioch of Syria where the followers of Jesus Christ were first called Christians. In other words, in this area where presently there is a horrible and unjust civil war going on, with the casualties mainly Orthodox Christians. Christians have existed since the 1st century AD. Today, unfortunately, extremist Islamist guerrillas burn churches and kill innocent people. That is main reason why so many Syrian Christians leave their homeland seeking refuge in nearby countries. Political analysis forecasts that if this situation continues, the Christianity in Syria is in danger of disappearing. Allow me also to remind you that on April 22nd of this year, two prominent Orthodox bishops who are trying to give humanitarian aid to war victims were kidnapped by Muslim rebels, and they have been missing since then. The same is happening in Pakistan, Iraq, and Egypt. That is, in countries where Christians also have existed since the early Christian era. In Egypt, for instance, Muslim brothers assassinate Orthodox Copts in cold blood without any justification. Last August, a monk from the historic monastery of St. Catherine, Mount Sinai, was on his way to Cairo, and he was abducted and kept prisoner for a while. But later he was set free. The recent Egyptian government gave orders to close the doors of the historic monastery of Sinai to the pilgrims in order to protect the Orthodox monks from the fury of the Muslims, but also to safeguard the treasures that have existed since the 4th century in the great library and gallery of the monastery from being destroyed. The third example of violence against the Orthodox Church comes from Balkan country. His Beatitude Anastasius, Archbishop of Albania, is anguished over the fate and security of his church in Albania. On August 16th, at the town of Premeti, Albania, public clerks of the Albanian Judicial Enforcement Service beat the priests and forcefully removed the believers from the Church of the Virgin Mary. Then they uploaded the church's sacred items and images onto a truck and closed the door of the church with bricks, because the Albanian authority wanted to convert the Orthodox Church into cultural center. The fourth and final example has to do with tormented ecumenical patriarchate of Constantinople. His All Holiness Patriarch Bartholomew has had to endure for the last 42 years the closing of the theological school in Halki Island, Turkey. The illegal closure of the Orthodox Theological School of Halki, which was the only educational institution for the training of clergy of the Patriarchate, by the government of Turkey in 1971, which has resulted in shortage of priests of the Patriarchate. What is happening in other countries sounds very strange to us who live in Korea. This is because in our country, with the grace of our Lord, we enjoy full religious freedom. We are grateful to God for this great gift, which may seem obvious to us, but some decades ago, it was not. Just as it's not obvious until now to a few miles in the northern part of Korean Peninsula. Now it is necessary to struggle for the defense and preservation of religious freedom. That is, we Christians must proclaim through our life and words the great value of Christian virtues of justice and peace. Furthermore, we must denounce with our spokenness, regardless of any personal costs, the injustice and the war on religion anywhere in the world. As an example of practical application of what was mentioned above, please allow me to make the following comments, after which I would like to finish my speech. The example concerns the activity of the Orthodox metropolis of Korea in North Korea and her efforts to create friendly relationship with our brother neighbors. When in 2002, the government of North Korea decided to build the Orthodox Church of the Holy Trinity in Pyongyang, the Orthodox metropolis of Korea, with the consent of the government of South Korea, sent many essential items, such as crane, electricity generators, air conditioners, radiators, bricks, tiles, and etc. I personally visited North Korea 3 times to accompany the shipment of these items together with the previous Metropolitan of Korea, His Eminence Sotirios Trumbas, along with other clergy and lay members of our church. When the building of the Holy Trinity Church in Pyongyang was completed, we were invited once more to visit the country and celebrate a pre-Latic divine liturgy there. This event was a natural development, as the Orthodox Church of Korea has been under the jurisdiction of the Ecumenical Patriarchate since 1955, after decision made by the local faithful in General Assembly. Next year, we'll celebrate 60th anniversary of this event. At the same time, we will celebrate the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Orthodox metropolis of Korea by the Ecumenical Patriarchate. At this point, I would like to say a few words about the drama that my country has been through for many centuries. And this drama is the result of antagonism between the 3 powerful surrounding countries. Each one of them tried to subordinate the Korean peninsula to its hegemony. Each one of them tried to, the result was that for centuries, Koreans were obliged to pay taxes to Chinese government. Then the Russian-Japanese war broke out. The Japanese prevailed and they occupied North and South Korea for 35 harsh years. During the Second World War, the Japanese was defeated and the Russian regime imposed communism to North Korea that lasts to this day. Therefore, I would like to express the following fervent wishes and prayer of the Christians in Korea, which we are making known today to all. The political bloody and destructive competition of the past, which was to the detriment of our country, should not in no way be followed by religious, ecclesiastical rivalities and jurisdiction. The entire Korean peninsula, north and south, is inhabited by the single people with a single national consciousness, the same blood and the same language. 10 million Koreans currently residing in South Korea have their families in North Korea, from where they were forced to escape to South in order to save themselves. Let therefore the entire Korean peninsula be peaceful, away from ecclesiastical authorities of foreign countries, to move on, united as one church under one bishop, as the holy ecclesiastical canons dictate, in order to fulfill her great and holy mission in this extreme corner of mainland Asia. Only in this way we will walk together, particularly because today, even though there is political separation, the Orthodox of South and North Korea are united and keep excellent brotherly relationship between us. Once more, we ask from the bottom of our hearts, do not let anyone from any foreign country try to cause problems which scandalize the faithful, especially those of weak conscience. Finally, for the prevalence of religious freedom in the world, apart from our own struggle, we definitely need help from on high. To this end, we pray fervently in the daily service of our Orthodox metropolitan of Korea for the reunification of South and North Korea and the prevalence of justice and peace in the world, hoping that with the help of God, there will be better days in the future. Thank you for your attention.
I will just get.
I'm Dr. Deepa Anna Thomas, and I bring you greetings from the Evangelical Lutheran Churches in India. Jai Masiki. India, in the news for all the wrong reasons: corruption, rape, honor killings, religious fanaticism, poverty, illiteracy, malnutrition, maternal deaths, and an exploding population, to name just a few. And yet, I am proud to be Indian and proud to be here representing the women of Asia. We are here from diverse cultures and ethnic backgrounds, speaking different languages, and yet we all carry with us the burdens of the women of our lands. Young girls fighting for the right to education, women who are abused and tortured just because they want to live life on their own terms. The nameless thousands who are victims of gender bias, female feticide, and social ostracization. As a radiologist working in a small mission hospital in the rural tribal heartland of central India, 4 hours away from our nearest cities, the theme of the assembly has also been my silent cry. Seeing the gross injustices that life seems to hand out to the poor and marginalized, I have questioned our God of life, wondering when He will lead us to justice and peace. The 2011 Indian population census impacted the dismal gender issues of skewed male-female ratios. India has 940 females per 1,000 males, and between 1991 and 2011, the child sex ratio, as children below the age of 6 years, declined from 945 to 914. According to UNICEF, that's a staggering 15 million girls missing over the past decade, mainly due to selective abortions and female infanticide, a reflection of the male-dominated society we live in, where girls are considered a burden, a commodity, unwanted, unloved. Indian law prohibits the prenatal determination of sex. My job entails doing ultrasounds on pregnant women, and I come across women who are repeatedly trying for a male heir, their bodies ravaged by poverty, malnutrition, abuse, and despair. July 2nd, 2011 seemed like just another day in my life. As I was winding up my work that Saturday evening, I was told that something unusual was going on in the operation theaters. I rushed in to see a beautiful set of twin girls who had just been delivered by cesarean section. Their young mother, Maya, had been in labor for 5 days and had been shifted from one village hospital to the next until she finally landed up in Pada Hospital in obstructed labor with fetal distress. The twins were, however, conjoined, attached to each other at the chest and upper abdomen. The weeks that followed were mentally exhausting, especially as the parents expressed a lack of interest in the twins. They already had a healthy young son, and 2 abnormal girls were going to be far more than they could handle. 5 days later, the parents abandoned the girls, donating them to Pada Hospital. Maya had no say in the matter, the decision being made by the grandfather and other village heads, as per their Hindu customs. She gave her children up, believing it was the best she could do, and we realized that forcing the parents to take the children home would definitely be akin to handing a death sentence. And so the girls became an integral part of our lives. We named them Stuti and Aradhana, meaning praise and worship in the local language Hindi. We housed them in our neonatal ICU and took care of their every need. The twins brought the entire community together. The outpouring of love was unbelievable. New mothers, both staff and patients, chipped in to provide breast milk. Members of their fan club squabbled to take them out for walks. School children came over to play with them. Shopkeepers showered them with sweets and biscuits. The local meat man treated them to his choicest cuts of goat meat and chicken. The twins blurred the margins between the rich and the poor, the educated and the not so, the Hindu, Muslim, Christian. They were absolutely gorgeous, and we loved them to bits. And we just couldn't see how their family could not love them too. We soon realized that the best chance for their survival would be to separate them. And so we began the arduous task of putting together a team of doctors from India and Australia, our classmates from the Christian Medical College, Vellore in South India. a difficult surgery, even in the best of centers in the Western world, was going to be performed in a village hospital. The naysayers derided us. But the outpouring of prayer and support from all over the world buoyed us along. The surgery was performed almost a year later, on the 20th of June, 2012, and was a victory for Christians all over India, a witness that our God reigns, even in the farthest reaches of the world, in obscure village hospitals. Among the unknown. The days following the surgery were euphoric and yet depressing, as Aradhana succumbed to infection 2 weeks after the surgery. And again, I questioned this God of life. And the answer I found on a plaque hanging in our outpatient block. John 15, verse 16 says, "For I have chosen you and ordained you, that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain." The verse encourages me in my mission, my decision to work in a small hospital among poor tribals, where we learn to make do without many essentials, where funds are scarce. It urges me to speak out for the voiceless girl child and women of India, of the many innocent lives that are sacrificed on the altars of greed, customs, hatred, lust, and ignorance. It reinforces my belief that we don't have to be a candle on a candle stand to give light, to take my candle and go light the world. And Stuti, she celebrated her second birthday with us this July, and we sent her home to her parents, who now wanted her back. After all, there is just no place like home. We pray that she and all other girls the world over will find peace and justice in their lifetime from this same God of life who we worship today. I pray Ephesians 1:18 upon them, that their minds may be opened to see his light, so that they will know what is the hope to which he has called them, how rich are the wonderful blessings he promises his people. Thank you. Now please join me as we pray together this poem which has been handed to you on the scroll, and I request you all to stand up for the reading of this prayer. God of life, lead us to act. God of life, lead us to justice and peace. You are the very source of our very lives. You created us in your own image with dignity and worth. You gave meaning and purpose for life. Without you, we cannot achieve full justice and peace. God of life, lead us from injustice and unpeace to justice and peace. Lead us to see injustice in Asia and in this world, of people against people, of people against nature, of structures and systems that dehumanize and ravage creation. Lead us to realize that there can never be peace where injustice exists. God of life, lead us to do justice and peace. You chose to call out a people to witness and manifest your will. Awaken us to the truth that we are to work together with you to bring justice and peace, that we are not just to pray, but also advocate and do the work for total salvation, which you worked out ahead for humanity. and for the world. Thank you.
While we sing, we are singing the stories in our lands. While we chant, we are chanting the hope for peace and justice. While we dance for the hope that someday, somehow, peace in Asia and peace around the world will be based on justice. Let's chant together. Ay, ay, mga bathala. Ay, 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 ay. Chant with us. Ay, ay, mga bathala. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, mga bathala. Ay, ay, mga bathala. Ay, ay, mga bathala. Ay, 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 mga bathala, 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 ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. As we journey together, let's bless our meals and remember the stories, the struggles, and the hopes in the land of Asia. God bless us all.